Thank you, everybody, for showing up tonight. Appreciate it. A couple more people here than I thought there'd be. That's always nice. Hopefully I can get this thing to work right. See, where do I start here? There it is. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Oh, wait, that's the wrong one. You know, I was going through my testimony and thinking about what I wanted to say tonight and all that. And I came to a couple different realizations that were pretty neat, you know. I mean, you know, the growth in certain parts that I can look back on now is just like, wow. You know, somebody told me once that, you know, life is lived forward, but it's understood backwards. And I thought that was a really, really good quote to think about and dwell on. You know, it's, everything happened for a reason, and I guess I'm right where I'm supposed to be. I used to hate that phrase, you're right where you're supposed to be, especially when I was. Anyway, my name is Crippen. My claim date is August 28th, 2018. So coming up on 7 years. I'm going to start with Romans 5, 3 through 4. Not only so, but we also glory in our sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character, and character, hope. This passage emphasizes that even suffering can lead to positive outcomes, such as building character and hope. I mean, I really believe that, you know, character is refined by fire. And that's what it says, right? That's how the dross comes off the silver. Anyway, I was born in Elmhurst, Illinois, and grew up in Antioch, Illinois. Wannabe Christian family. Tried to put up a good front to everybody on Sundays. And then church didn't matter too much after that. I got to see and grow up with quite a bit of hypocrisy, if you will. Do what I say, not what I do. You know, a lot of that stuff going on. Passed by a bunch of my childhood stuff. You know, when it came time for me to graduate from high school, my little brother was just going into high school, and my little sister was 9, so I was the oldest of 3. My parents were right in the middle of their divorce. And we were broke to begin with. So I knew darn well that, you know, what am I going to do? Go get a job? I sure as heck can't afford college. Didn't get any scholarships. And, you know, I kind of had planned for a couple of years to go military. So I knew that's what I was doing. So I planned that for a while. I joined the Army. I wanted the highest level education-wise I could get and the toughest thing I could get because I had something to prove. So, I guess it worked out, but I think I was a nuclear biological chemical specialist in the military, and after training and after airborne school and all that, about 6 months later I was sent off to Desert Shield and Desert Storm. So spent at least a third of my military time out in the sandbox, if you will. So I was there for all of it. I was in an airborne unit, so that means I jumped out of airplanes for those people who don't know the military. A lot of interesting stories, and in the war I saw way more than a 20-year-old should ever see, as you can imagine, but that's not what we're really here to talk about right now. So I'm going to bypass a lot of the military stuff, and I will refer to a few things on that later. Either way, I'm still proud of doing what I did. I wouldn't change that, and I'm also proud of my accomplishments, so that works out. After I got out of the military, I'll never forget too, they asked me if I wanted to read a list, and I don't think I laughed that hard in a while. It was not going to happen, especially after the stuff I saw. And the Army doesn't always work out the way you want it to work out, if you will. As you can imagine, some of the stories are true. The right way, the wrong way, the Army way. It's like, what? Anyway. But I went straight to college at Northern Illinois University. I was a biochemical engineering, that was my major. And instead, I majored in alcoholism. Isn't that great? I decided to be a bartender to help supplement my income, even though I was getting the college fund. I had to pay for my Camaro and all that stuff, and I was the cool guy because I just turned 21 after I started. As a freshman, I got to the fraternity and all that stuff. And, well, the way it worked out is I ended up majoring in alcoholism because I had a couple of math teachers in algebra I couldn't understand what they were saying because they were practically speaking Arabic or Indian or whatever it was. Big auditorium classroom. And I guess I just wasn't going to stand for that after I just came out of the war. It's like, you know, that just didn't work for me. So, I mean, I wish I would have reacted differently. And, you know, thinking back on it, I wish I would have done some things differently as far as that goes. There's always a way to adapt and overcome. I just didn't care. That's what it comes down to. But I was just partying in fraternities and all that until I ended up out. So got myself a job doing asbestos removal. Mop and bucket brigade, we were wearing the tie-back suit. And, you're in 140-degree containments, wearing all that stuff. It was just really hard labor, but it was good money, so you're laid off. When I was in college, right before I left, I had met this girl, and it was convenient, and she was nice, and the next thing you know, I'm dropping the podium. The next thing you know, she couldn't get pregnant, so I didn't have that to worry about. So 15 minutes later, she was pregnant. Oh yeah, that's kind of how that worked out. And next thing you know, we're living together in a little apartment in Salem, and I had a little baby girl. Love her to death. Wouldn't change that part of things. But I was still stuck in that party mentality and that alcohol thing. And even though I had work to do and stuff like that, it was like you work, and then you go to the bar, play bar league softball. Then you go out and play darts in the wintertime and all that. Hard to imagine it here in South Carolina, but in Wisconsin, there's not one bar in every corner. There's like 4 bars in every corner. I mean, it's ridiculous how many bars are up there. I mean, the whole area is just littered with it. I mean, out in South Carolina, I think I know of 4 of them. Out there, I know of 4 of them on every street. So it's a different thing. Everything I did had to do with the bars. It was crazy. Anyway, had a second kid, little boy, had a house over in Wilmot, and then as things got worse with my drinking and everything else like that, and me being in the car business, working 12-hour shifts, and never home, and can't do family things, and working every Saturday, all this other crazy stuff. Eventually that led to a divorce, which dragged on for years. It was great. So it's a horrible, horrible divorce with all kinds of stories, but we're not here to talk about all those. I moved to Kenosha when I was getting divorced, and I was so broke I couldn't really even keep my apartment. I thought I had everything planned. I thought I had everything figured out. Turns out it would be the first time I thought I had things figured out. Somehow it didn't work out. But I did start KenoshaNightlife.com. I came up with the idea of having an internet business to be able to put all the bars and restaurants together, since there's so many of them, where people could go online and find out what's going on in town. Well, I'll be darned, by doing the bars individual websites that way and setting them all up, I built a halfway lucrative business for a while, so I was able to supplement my income and survive. However, shortly after that, I met this girl, and about that same time, I found the wonderful world of cocaine. So, any little extra money I had was gone. So, and then it was even more than that. So, things went from bad to worse. She was a bartender, imagine that. I met a bartender to hang out with. And she also couldn't be pregnant. You'll never guess what happened. Never guess what happened. So anyway, usually I ended up having a little boy, and I moved in with her and everything else like that, but the partying never stopped. And I ruined her life because she couldn't keep doing the partying and the bar thing and everything else. The situation just got really weird. I mean, it was a totally dysfunctional relationship, and the whole thing centered around drugs and the bar scene. I mean, that's just kind of the way it worked. Let's see here. So that went on for quite a while, and the dysfunction continued. Losing jobs, taking a couple weeks off, going to get another job. They said the car business is the only business that you can parachute naked into Montana and have a brand new car and a $40,000 a year job in 20 minutes. Well, I didn't challenge it that far, but good salespeople are hard to find. So I mean, I was able to get a job pretty much wherever, whenever I wanted to, but that also really led to some other bad habits. I could just walk out of one and hop into another. Really was not a good situation all the way around. One day, working in Antioch, Illinois, I'll never forget the day before I'd fallen asleep in the car standing up. The customer asked me a question. And I woke up and sold the car. Everybody thought that was hilarious. The next day when I fell asleep, my boss said, go get a drug test right now. I knew darn well I wasn't going to pass that drug test. I didn't study. So, I mean, so I knew I was in big trouble then. Looking back at it now, if I could remember how to get a hold of him, I would actually thank him, because I didn't know what to do. I was stuck. And at that point, for some reason, I didn't think about going and finding another job. I don't know, I was afraid to tell the next person or whatever, but I got a hold of the VA. Okay, before then, I had been through the PTSD stuff and got my disability check and refused any other treatment. But it was only for a little bit, like 60% or something. But so I went to the VA and I went to their ATP program, Addiction Treatment Program. It was a locked-in inpatient 35-day program for addiction. Okay. Well, I did that, and I went through that, and they told me point blank, you can't drink. You know, so my problem is drugs. I said, well, yeah, but that all comes together, and you can't drink either. Oh, what the heck did they know? I don't know that. So, you know, I got out of treatment and stuff like that. I can still drink, I just can't do drugs. It didn't work out too well. It really didn't work out too well. One thing led to another, it's all the same thing, you know. And I was trying to do it all on my own as well, too. But the idea of going to that program, it did start the whole first idea of recovery, and it finally started to have one foot in the right direction. While I was in there, they told me I needed to go to the intensive PTSD treatment center. And I told them no, that wasn't going to happen. So I went in and out of the programs, in and out of a few other things. You know, the programs, different jobs, different things going on. I can only stay clean between 90 and 120 days. Every time between 90 and 120 days clean, I'd end up going back out. Finally had to realize that there was the PTSD issue. I was self-medicating, and that's why. They say that your feelings and emotions come back between 90 and 120 days. And that's exactly what it was. I did not want to have to deal with those memories, did not want to have to deal with those emotions, and frankly, all the other emotions were shut down too. I pretty much had anger, and that's about it. So that worked for me. It kept people away, and it got me some of the things I wanted. So I didn't want to have to deal with the rest of the emotions, and I never really did. So I got a stack of 90-day chips I could start a poker game with. I mean, eventually I realized what was going on with that, but during this whole time and a bunch of other things going on, I broke my probation because I had other issues. And when I eventually got in trouble for that, I got thrown in jail. So they gave me a 3-month jail sentence, which was 52 days. I don't know how 3 months is 52 days, but I was very happy it wasn't any longer. Actually, I think it was 69 days. I read 52 books in 69 days. Kept my nose clean. I will never forget, ever forget, being in there and just saying, they can't do this to me. I mean, I'm a veteran. And they're like, yeah, don't they know who I am? Yeah, they knew who I was. I was right where I needed to be, I guess. I remember laying up in the top bunk and stuff like that, and tearing up and everything else like that. And you never guess who I met there? I met Jesus there, finally. Finally decided to give up, surrender, turn it over, and let go. That's when I started reading the books. It's amazing how many different books they had in that book there. You're in jail. And nothing else to do, by the way. So I read, what do you call it, C.S. Lewis, Chuck Colson. The list is huge. It's absolutely crazy. Mere Christianity from C.S. Lewis. So I did book studies. I wrote down all these different notes and everything else like that. It was pretty amazing, actually, all the way around. But that really started a 2-year exploration for me when I got out. I lost everything. You know, I don't think I had my car. Might have had a car. But I didn't have anywhere to live, and everything that was in my apartment was put on the curb, except for a couple things my dad and my son got. It was kind of a very humiliating, humble moment in time. They managed to put a few things in my access garage. And that was it. But I did manage to go get an apartment from there. At this time, though, that it started a 2-year cycle of me searching for the spirituality aspect of the program. You know, I wanted to know absolutely everything. Everything there was to know about Christianity, about Jesus, about did he really exist? What about the dinosaurs? What about the speed of light? And every other stupid question anybody has ever asked. I wanted to know all those things. I did not want to hear it from one person, and I wanted both sides of it, and I wanted to know everything, and I wanted to know it now. Well, life doesn't work that way, so that took about 2 years of searching while in this apartment, struggling to try to stay clean and going back and forth. During that time, I ended up moving into Antioch, Illinois, finally, and that helped me change my people, places, and things. We all know what those are. I mean, if you don't change, you can't change people, places, and things, but if you don't change your people, places, and things, then nothing's going to change. So I finally got the idea of that, moving to Antioch, Illinois, about a half hour from Kenosha. Got myself a little bit together, and was having a little bit of momentum now with recovery because I was trying to work out in there a little bit as I was learning different things. And I made a valiant attempt to save my girlfriend and the mother of my third born, my second son, Chase. But trying to save her, she kept pulling me out. So I ended up hanging in the bar with her. And you know the old story, you hang in a bar long enough, or you hang in a barber shop long enough, you're going to get your haircut. That's the same thing when you go to a bar. Oh, I can drink Diet Coke. Maybe for an hour, maybe for a couple days, not for long. You hang out, it's going to happen. So it kept pulling me back out there. So, kept going back to the addiction treatment program. This time I went to the PTSD program over at the Lovell Federal Healthcare Center, and by about week 3, I got kicked out for fighting. What did they expect? A PTSD veteran? We're not going to be aggressive? I never hit anybody, but it was just kind of a crazy thing that happened. But I was all mad and the whole thing, all disgusted and the whole thing. Of course, I went out and relapsed and all that stuff. Anyway, shortly thereafter, the woman I was trying to save, Chase's mom, she ended up dying. She actually went to the bar, got drunk, somebody dropped her off the house, she slipped and fell and laid down and blocked her airway and died. That was it. So at least she didn't suffer like a couple of her friends did a couple months before that, you know, when they were young in the hospital and everything else like that. But, you know. So she passed away, and believe it or not, I still had one more relapse in me, I guess. Yeah. So I went back to the ATP program for the 5th time. I did not get this program right away. It took me a while to get it down. Anyway, this time I did go to the PTSD program again, completed everything, made some good friends, paid attention, and actually listened to what was being said. Later on, when I was working with my second sponsor, the first sponsor was a guy who had no time on his hands and didn't want to do anything, so it was perfect for me because I didn't want to do anything either. So what's the point of having a sponsor at that point? The second sponsor was a veteran like me, and yeah, we go through all kinds of stuff, Rock the Rock and all kinds of other things. It was really good, actually. It really helped me get on track. Let's see here. Finally turned to God and built some better habits, which is funny because when I was going through that big 2 years of searching and stuff, I actually went to a lecture by Lee Strobel. For anybody who doesn't know Lee Strobel, he's the author of The Case for Christ. Now he's got like 5 other books, but he was doing his book tour on The Case for Miracles at the time, and he was speaking in Lake Forest. It wasn't that far away, so I went there. Well, I just happened to be the last person in line to buy the book and get it signed. There just happened to be nobody behind me, and he just happened to feel like talking. So he and I talked for like 15 minutes. I mean, just a complete coincidence, right? He just had nowhere else to be, I guess. So he and I had a nice little conversation, and he said this to me. He said, I've been where you are. He said, I will leave you with these 2 things. He said, how much proof is enough? You've studied stuff for a couple of years now. You've studied this, you've studied that. You know, this is true. You know, this isn't. You know, there's this. You know, there's that. You know, there's these findings, this science thing, this excavation. You looked at more stuff than I did. Okay? How much proof is enough? You're never going to know everything. And even the people who think they have all the answers, eventually things get changed with science, but whatever. And then the other thing he said, okay, now if that's true, now what? And it was a rhetorical question. We neither one an answer at that time. And I was just like, oh. And that's pretty much what I said. Was, oh. And he said, exactly. That was the questions I had to deal with. And so we said our goodbyes and everything else like that, but that really, really, really stuck with me going forward. Finally, with that second sponsor, I did the steps, went through them all. Turned to God and finally started getting some better habits. Finally decided to do the 90 meetings in 90 days thing. Did it before, but I didn't do it past it. So hitting 90 and 90 was like, okay, here we go again. This time they said, do 90 and 90 again. And I said, yeah, okay, we'll try it. I got to 6 months for the first time. And my sponsor said, well, guess what? Do 90 and 90 one more time, see what happens. That's so crazy, it just might work. You know? By this time, I liked going to meetings. I had lots of friends there. We're doing activities with them and everything else. I was running a meeting. And then doing it one more time and made it to a year.
Wow.
Okay? Got my first year clean and never looked back from there. So, you know, that's just where I am today. I had about a year and a half clean and sober. Was in Antioch, and had this weird middle of the night desire to look up somebody that I dated when I was in the military 30 years beforehand. And I did. And even though I did it quite a few times over the years, I never found her. But this time I did. Must have been God's timing, because it wasn't mine. And after a lot of talking, going back and forth and everything else, and then a lot of prayers, because I was definitely on the right side of things. We ended up getting together and getting married. I moved up to South Carolina. That's how I got up here. Yeah. And it was the girl who got away, the 30-year-ago relationship and all that stuff like that. And, the little fantasy story and the whole, yeah, it's great, no problem, all good. Well, sounded great, sounded like the fairy tale I was looking for, and I thought for sure that's what God wanted me to do. But things just didn't work out. They really did. I'll get back to that in a second. While I was going through all this other stuff with my research and going through everything else and going through the program and finally getting some clean time, I started experiencing some different veterans programs. First one I was exposed to was Fishing for Freedom in Quincy, Illinois. First time I went was 2015. So it was 2016. So 16, 17, 18, and 19. I did it 4 years in a row. And I remember the 16 was the first fishing tournament I was ever in of any kind. Never been to one before. And I went out there and I had a really tough job. I was a veteran, so they handed me a bunch of free stuff, gave me free food, gave me a free hotel, and just told me to go wherever. I'll never forget, so I was so broke I took a train to get down there because my car broke. The poor guy picks me up at the airport, takes me to the hotel, or picks me up at the train station, takes me to the hotel. And I was pretty much just my cabbie for the rest of the time I was there. But okay, the fish is biting. Don't touch yet. Don't touch yet. Okay, grab it. I grabbed it, reeled it in, he did everything else. That was my whole job. That was it. Grab the ball, reel it in when he says so. We won the whole tournament. I caught like a 20-pound catfish and a bunch of other stuff. I had trophies and pictures, the paper, it was just a ride. I loved it. So I went 4 years in a row. I ended up with like 6 trophies over those 4 years. Only 1 year we didn't get anything, and I had a ball. It was awesome. But that got me into fishing because all that free stuff they gave me, most of it was fishing gear. So I started doing some fishing around the area and stuff like that. Got a kayak, started doing that. And then before I ended up moving to South Carolina, I actually bought a cheap boat. And a couple grand boat, it's a piece of junk, but I took it everywhere. Did more damage to it than I'd like to admit, but I was learning. And it's just kind of funny what happened. What's funny is, a couple years later, I ended up going back to fishing for freedom. And that was 2023. I went back to fishing for freedom as a boater with my own boat. And I took it better at fishing. That felt really good, really good. They actually interviewed me when I was there, and I told them my story about some of that stuff. And believe it or not, that interview and that video is still on their website at Fishing for Freedom, Quincy, Illinois. It's pretty neat, but it's still on there. After 2 years, it's still up there. So anyway, I don't know what happened on the page. Over there. You get some notes, and then here we go. So in 2021, after I moved to South Carolina, married, and all that stuff like that, I had some health issues come up. Frankly, some severe stomach issues and stuff like that. I found that I had a blockage, diverticulitis, and I was really in bad shape. Infection and everything else like that. I was originally misdiagnosed, so it was even harder. Got a second opinion, ended up immediately in the hospital, getting part of my intestine taken out, and they gave me an ostomy. So I came out of the hospital with a nice little poop bag taped to my stomach. Lovely. Talk about your whole self-worth and everything else like that, your self-esteem and everything else like that, straight down. I had to deal with that. It was just crazy. Just completely traumatizing. It was nuts. I was married at the time, and she helped me out with quite a bit of stuff. But frankly, I almost died through all that stuff. Took 8 months or so to that, and they finally did the takedown surgery and put me back together, thank God. Whew. Glad to get that done with. But, months of recovery and all that stuff. And when I was all done, I gave myself a hernia, so I had to go back and get one more surgery. Got me over getting this big hernia mesh. So 3 stomach surgeries later, went through that, and then things turned around. 2022, I managed to win the Angler of the Year with Christian Carolina Bass Masters with a guy from one of the recovery rooms. And fishing took off. I started doing major league fishing tournaments and stuff. And really, everything was clicking on our page. Upgraded to a different boat. Everything was really going in the right direction. It really was. Until I came back from Las Vegas with the wife in 2023, and she said she wanted a divorce. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is supposed to be the fairy tale story here. This can't happen. I asked God about this, and then the answers I got were obvious. I mean, it's obvious God wanted me to be here and do this. Okay? I hate jumping around, that's why I took notes, and I'm still jumping around. In the meantime with this, I had moved my mother out to this way from Wisconsin. She was in an assisted living facility, and they weren't taking care of her. She was in bad shape. She was in and out of the hospital like 3 times. I went out there, she was still in the hospital. We cleaned her place out, and it was disgusting. And loaded up a trailer, and I moved her out to an assisted living facility out here. And she actually made a really good turn. I was doing really well. But that happened in the interim of some of this stuff. But anyway, when she said she wanted a divorce, I was in denial, complete and total denial. I can fix this. We can go to counseling. I'm in for the long haul. We can do this. No problem. Well, I probably could have if there was 2 people involved in that. But she had decided she wanted a divorce. That was it. Feelings gone, emotions gone. That's it. She's done. It's like, hang on, I'm not your boyfriend for a week. We're married. I mean, we've been through all this stuff, but no, it didn't matter to her. So it took me a while to get past that. So it took tons of prayers, tons of meetings, sponsor out here, pastoral care, veterans groups. I went through all this different stuff to be able to get through all this stuff and keep my head on straight. But I did it. I reached out toward the program again instead of reaching for a bottle or for some drugs. And that really, really helped. I'll tell people, till the cows come home, if that's still a phrase, that, if you're going through something, and even though you're clean and sober now, it doesn't mean you're exempt from having issues and problems. If they're going to happen, it's life. People are going to die, there's going to be surgeries, there'll be all kinds of stuff going on. And a lot of it's out of your control. So you keep going back to the serenity prayer, which is what I hung on to early in recovery more than anything else. What can I really control? I can barely control me. How the heck am I supposed to control anything else? I mean, I can barely control how I react to things. I really think I can control other people, places, and things. Probably a good thing I can't. Probably wouldn't go well. So there's that. But, I was in complete denial until after Christmas. After that, I started getting it through my head that this was the way things were going to happen. I started looking for a house. She told me to get out. That's it. Get out. I said, no. She said, what? I said, I never hit you. I never drank. I never did drugs. I never did. You can wait till I get the house and move out. Just relax. We're okay. Well, she actually did, because I said it with a nice calm tone, so that actually worked. No police intervention, no craziness, no stupidity. That's growth, by the way. So I ended up eventually finding a house, moved out to Lancaster, South Carolina in March of 2024. Okay? Which is funny, because in June of 2024, no, that was this year. So. Okay. Anyway, so March of 2024, 2 weeks after I moved in and closed on the house, which was 5 miles away from my mom's assisted living facility, my mom passed away. Just all at once. She was in the hospital, sure, she was sick, but doctor said she was coming home the next day. She was fine, no big deal. Next thing you know, I get that call. She coded, what? So I completely crazy out of the blue. I wouldn't trade the time that I had with her. My family trusted me to move her out here, number 1. Number 2, I got to see her about 3 times a week, which is more than I did for a long time. And, I took her out to eat once a week. I took her out to get her nails done and everything else like that. I took her to church. And during that time, she actually came back to God, too, which is kind of neat. But she was doing really well. She went from being in a walker with oxygen, catheter and all kinds of crazy stuff, to helping all the other ladies in the place and just doing fine. They'd walk all over the place, no walker, nothing, tennis shoes, the whole, I'm like, you okay? She's like, oh yeah. I'm all right. And she was doing really well. So I wouldn't trade that time for anything. But what's interesting is, I guess I'm supposed to be here. So when I think about it, if she would have died 2 weeks earlier, I probably wouldn't have closed the house. I probably would have said, I'm going to go move up north. That's where everybody I know is. And my story would have changed pretty drastically. But it didn't happen until after I moved here. So I guess I'm supposed to be here, which is fine with me. I love it in South Carolina. So anyway, I was able to look at myself in the mirror after the divorce. And with the program, with all the counselors and people I'm talking about, and I'm not talking about professional counselors, really. There was the VA guy, but I mean, for the most part, it was my pastor and all the people in the rooms. My sponsor, people in the rooms. This is how we do life. We talk to each other and we learn how to do life together. It just works. The first word in the program is we. I don't care if it's AA, NA, CR, whatever. The first word in the program is we. We don't have to do this alone anymore, and I didn't. I finally paid attention to everybody else's advice and actually did that, and it worked. So, at the end of the day, thinking about what happened with the divorce and everything, I stayed sober. I did everything on my end that was possible to do to keep the relationship together. She wouldn't have it. You can't force somebody. You most certainly can't. But I ended up leaving on my own accord, leaving there with a loaded trailer of stuff and going to move into my new house, used house, whatever. Who the heck gets divorced and goes and moves into a house? That's pretty good. And it was very much a big deal. And no, my head wasn't on perfect, but you know what? Things started to really come together with it too. I got friends in these rooms and friends in the veterans groups. One of the guys from the DAV gave me a whole bedroom set. He was getting rid of it. Matter of fact, I think David helped me carry the darn thing and haul it out there, which he probably regretted about 10 minutes later, because I think it took 3 of us to move the headboard. Holy cow. And nicest set of furniture I've ever had. Oh, just take it, sure. Cool. I didn't have a bed for the spare room. Previous owner left the bed there. I mean, everything just kind of clicked and put together. I needed a couch. He left 2 chairs. Pastor Mike gave me a couch. Yeah, I mean, everything just lined up and just worked beautifully when I moved in. It's definitely where I was supposed to be. These last few years, and I mean few like as in the last, 7, 8 years, I didn't just do the Fishing for Freedom stuff. I also got a chance to go to Israel with the Heroes to Heroes group, with the veterans group. So I got to spend 10 days touring Israel with all these people, but I didn't just tour with them, I toured with the IDF. So the Israeli Defense Force, I got to be behind the scenes on so many different things and hear so much history of so many different things with people who've been there and done that. And I actually have friends who are disabled IDF soldiers. It's pretty neat. I mean, I got to do a scuba diving trip in the Bahamas. I got to do a downhill ski trip in Idaho. I did whitewater rafting in the Grand Canyon. I did all these amazing, crazy things. Even visited my son when he was stationed in Hawaii. That's how I got scuba certified. And I did all these things, and I had no business doing them, but I had an opportunity, and I just took it every time. I was able to pull it off, so I did it. You know what? I think as I get older, I'm going to have regrets of the things I didn't do a lot more than the things I did do. And I'm very glad I had those opportunities to do that. This April, I got a chance to go back for my second time to the Army Bass Anglers Texas tournament. I joined a group called Army Bass Anglers. I got my boat wrapped with the Army Bass Anglers logo. It's just awesome. So I get to support a cause greater than myself. I support 4 different veterans trophy charities, and I just love it. It's a lot of fun. I don't get anything for it, but I get to help. It's kind of nice. Make my way, give it back a little bit. And then in June, I went back to Fishing for Freedom. Again, second time I was able to go. I had to skip the year I moved in the house because I was a little broke, but I got to go back again. I'm hoping to go every year. And I got to take another veteran fishing. This time they gave me an 86 or 7-year-old guy who could barely get in and out of the boat. I had to have 3 people help me get him in the boat, 3 people help me get him out of the boat, and I had to figure out how the heck I could position him where he could fish. But it was fun. It worked out. It tested my patience in a lot of ways, but it was really good. I mean, I got to change gears, going from I'm going to win this tournament to I'm going to get him to catch fish. And that's it, because that was what really mattered. So Again, more growth. I'm seeing growth every time I look backwards. Every time I look forwards, I gotta quit looking forwards and start looking up. That's what I have to do. But anyway, now I have a good girlfriend who happens to be I can't say ex-Marine, I guess I can say prior Marine. But who gives me a run for my money, which is good, because at least she understands some of the stuff. And I still have plenty of things to do. I'm very, very blessed all the way around. But I mean, I got to see firsthand the miracle of all these people when I was going through it who had the breakthroughs and had recovery. I mean, here I am looking for 2 years on the whole God thing, and the miracles are right in these rooms, AA, NA, all these other things. Miracles are right in front of me every day. I get to see people who almost died, almost OD'd and everything else, and they turn their lives around in these rooms. It's just amazing. You know, it really is. You know, I think, again, we're really judged on how we overcome adversity. There's no question about it. And I'm just glad I was able to do all the things I was able to do. And if you told me years ago I'd be up talking to other people about my story, I would have laughed, man. I would have really laughed. I said, who wants to hear my story? That is not happening. But it's not mine, it's God's. I mean, I tried recovery without it. It didn't work. When I finally turned it over to God, then I started getting some traction. I still had work to do. But you know what? I could get some solid footing. I can build off that. And now in a place I never thought I would get to. So I'm going to leave you with 2 things today. At the end of my little testimony here. This is something to think about. How much proof is enough? God is real. How much proof is enough? And if that's true, no. Thanks, guys.